Hamsters? As food? That's got to be a joke, right? No way any culture ever ate hamsters seriously. Still, what if there was a forgotten tribe with a reason to? I'd watch that. Scroll through any discussion on ancient diets and animal consumption, and you're bound to find strong reactions to the mere mention of eating small, cute creatures. Hamsters, in the modern imagination, are pets, pocket-sized companions with twitching noses and tiny paws. But what if that perception blinds us to a deeper, older possibility? What if, buried in the margins of forgotten oral histories, there was a people who did eat them? Not as snacks, but as sacred offerings, as medicine, as symbols of survival. Let's step into the misty highlands of an imaginary region, the terraces of Sulukta, a wind-bitten plateau where the earth cracks open in volcanic seams and the grass grows only where the ash cools. Here, amid the silver shrubs and red rocks, a small, elusive rodent lived, the long-furred mountain hamster called Nuruk by the Sulukan people. The Sulukans were real in the sense that all myths are real. A semi-nomadic group imagined from threads of Central Asian folklore, fragments of old Turkic tales, and whispers passed down in goat midnets. They believed every creature was a vessel of spirit, and none more contradictory than the hamster. Small, soft, and fiercely territorial, gentle until cornered, burrowing into the cold earth like the dead, then emerging fat with seeds, was the creature of paradox. To eat one was not simple nourishment. It was transformation. Children in Sulukan villages were raised on stories that the Nuruk was the soul of lost warriors, reborn to test the humility of the living. Killing a Nuruk without prayer could bring a curse, a winter without grain, dreams invaded by teeth and claw. But killing one with the proper rites meant strength in silence, foresight in darkness, and luck in hidden places. The hunt for the Nuruk was a quiet art. It required patience, stillness, and permission from elders and the spirits of the burrows. Hunters would fast for a day and smear their faces with dust. They'd wait near known burrow mounds, listening for the soft rhythm of digging. If caught, the Nuruk was never killed immediately. It was brought back alive and cradled in moss. Elders would circle it, chanting in low tones, until the animal stopped trembling. Only then would the ritual begin, not of slaughter, but of passage. A clay blade, never metal, was used. The first cut was made by the youngest child present, under guidance, to symbolize innocence returning the warrior to the earth. The meat was not consumed immediately. It was dried in sun-shattered, a space between sunlit hours, defined by a specific ritual calendar. Only after 3 days would it be softened in broth made from root bark and bitter salt, then served with fermented millet and a splash of wild goat milk. To outsiders, this seems excessive, even imaginary. But within the Sulukan worldview, this ritual anchored the year. It was performed during the month of Hollow Wind, a time believed to thin the veil between the world of ancestors and the living. Colonial accounts, fictional ones in our tale, describe the Sulukans as mouse-eaters with disgust. But those who spent more time with them, like the fictional ethnographer, Dr. Lena Kaldar, came to see the ritual as layered, emotionally intense, and strangely beautiful. Dr. Kaldar's journals, recovered in the imagined ruins of Durak's tower, describe her participation in a Nuruk feast. She wrote, "The silence was heavy, not oppressive but thick, like fur in the throat. No one smiled. We ate with reverence. I held a spoon of broth that had once been a rodent and somehow felt I was drinking a story older than language." This narrative, fictional but rooted in plausible anthropological logic, challenges our assumptions. Could a culture form a sacred bond with an animal we now view as trivial? Could the act of eating something so small carry deep symbolic weight? In the Sulukan imagination, the Nurk was not food. It was myth. In part 2, we will reconstruct the Sulukan preparation of the Nurak, the foraging of herbs, the layering of heat, the ceremonial vessel, and the ancestral silence that seasoned every bite. Stay with us. The ritual of preparing the Nurak began before the animal was even caught. It started in the mind. A week of meditation, silence, and dietary abstinence, intended to cleanse the spirit and heighten intuition. Only those deemed spiritually attuned were allowed to participate in the preparation. The herbs used were collected at dawn, when shadows were longest. Whispering nettle, black tuft anise, and frost root, all gathered while barefoot, with a braided cord tied around the gatherer's waist. The act symbolized the hunter's humility before the spirits of the earth. Back in the camp, the Nurak meat, now dried and thin like parchment, was layered in a stone vessel called a gurnash. This bowl, carved with runes from ancestral stories, was heated slowly, with embers rather than flame. Into this vessel were added shavings of moon bark, a bitter tree resin, crushed seed crystals, and the herbal paste, pounded by hand with rhythmic chanting. The sound of the chant was believed to soften the memory of the Nurak's death, soothing its soul as it passed into nourishment. Broth was poured last, a rich dark liquid made by steeping bark and bone from goats that had died naturally, never slaughtered. The smell was complex, earthy, fermented, slightly sweet. The cooking took 6 hours, during which no words were spoken, only breathing, wind, and distant birds. When the meal was ready, it was not served all at once. Each person received only a ladle of stew and a half-spoon of millet. The gurnash remained at the center, untouched after the first servings. It was considered the spirit's share. Children who tasted the stew were instructed to swallow slowly and close their eyes. Eat with your ears, they were told, and remember what it meant to be hidden. The dish was never named aloud during the meal. Only later, after ash from the fire was spread on the path, would someone say, "Nurak has passed through us." It was both an ending and a beginning. One elder, fictional but drawn from composites of oral traditions, once told Dr. Kaldar, "You think we eat this to survive, but that is not why we eat. We eat to carry a silence no one else dares hold." Modern readers may see this as elaborate fantasy, and it is, in part, but it speaks to a truth beyond accuracy. It imagines a world where the smallest act, the eating of a hamster, holds weight, history, and sacred contradiction. As a Sulukan sun sets over the terraces of Sulukta and the wind carries the memory of moss-limbed burrows, we are left with a question. What stories have we ignored because the creatures within them seem too small? And what rituals remain hidden in plain sight, waiting to be retold with reverence? In the nights that followed the ritual, no music was played. The silence extended into daily life. Even laughter was hushed, as if the Nurak spirit still lingered in the air. The fire pits were not rekindled until a full moon passed, and those who had eaten the stew would wear a strip of fur, symbolic, not real, woven into their belts, a badge of reverent memory. It was also customary to mark a nearby stone with ochre, the color of sun-dried blood. The marks were simple, a single arc for each Nurak honored. Over time, the valley walls formed a language of their own, an archive of feasts and funerals told in curves and crescents. These markings weren't for others. They weren't signs or warnings. They were memory embodied in matter, the land itself becoming a storyteller. And it was said that those who ignored the markings, strangers, or even young silicons, risked losing their way in the fog-draped hills. Once every 3 years, the Girdish itself would be buried and replaced. This burial was a ritual unto itself. The elders selected a spot where the soil was black and the moss grew thick. They spoke no words, but hummed a single, unbroken note until the vessel vanished beneath the earth. A new one would be carved during the next snowfall. Even in endings, the Seleucans imagined beginning. Dr. Kaldar's final field notes, now stored in the mythical archives of the Lost Ethnographers Guild, close with a curious phrase. To eat the Narak is not to consume a creature. It is to host a haunting. And every haunting, if held gently, becomes a guide. What a strange way to understand the world. Through small things, carefully held. Perhaps we need that strangeness now, more than ever.